is currently buying homes in Phoenix right now? If you listen to the media, you may think no one's buying homes in Phoenix, but as a matter of fact, there are plenty of buyers out there. And today I'm going to show you who is buying homes in terms of what they're buying for, whether it's an investment or an owner occupant, what kind of financing they're using, and we're going to talk about the difference between what the sales prices are today versus what information just came out from Case-Shiller that is 3 months old for January data. So let's get into it. Welcome, everyone. I'm Caitlin McKegg. I'm a real estate broker here in Phoenix, and always sharing as much data as possible to help you make informed decisions. So this is from the Cromford Report. It's the percentage of home sales by intended use, and this goes back quite a while. I may actually take some of these years out of here so it's a little bit easier for us to see the current years on the screen. So bear with me a second. All right, there we go. So you can see a little bit more here, a little bit easier. So here's where we're at Q1 of 2023. And this very tiny little bar at the bottom is the iBuyer purchases. And you can see how small this is, 0.6% as compared to where we're at in Q2 of 2022 at about 5.7%. And Q3 of 2021 at 5.7%. 3%, and today they're not even 1 full percent of purchases in the Phoenix area. This pink bar is investor purchases. So this has gone down where from the highs that we were seeing in 2020 to 2021. We're at about 14.3% investor purchases. And if we look back to 2017, 2018, before things got super crazy, we were in this like 10 to 12% range for investor purchases. So that seems to be pretty normal. And then we look at the second home purchases. We've got about 10% of purchases in Q1 being second homes. In the frenzy of 2020, 2021, that was a little bit higher at 12%, but nothing extremely high. We were only seeing, it looks like 9, 12%, 11%, and now we're at 10%. So that hasn't changed that much. But one of the big things that we've seen change is the owner-occupant purchases, and this is a good thing. We definitely want to see more owner occupants buying in a healthy market. So 74.5% of sales in Q1 so far have been for owner occupants, which is great. We see in the past that was down to 62%, 63%, 64%, when things were getting a little bit crazy and we were seeing a larger number of investor purchases around that 20% range at that time, eating up a lot of our inventory. So today we see this normalize again to 74%. And again, if you look back to 2016, 2017, we were right in that kind of mid 70s range for a long time. So this is who is buying homes in Q1. Even if we look towards the end of the year last year, we can see this investor purchases slowing down. We can see the iBuyer purchases slowing down. And we see the second home purchases kind of staying the same. And then this is where we start to see more of those owner occupants getting some share of the inventory. So that is who is currently buying homes in Phoenix. We do have a lot of activity, and it's more of a healthy shift in activity than all of the investor purchases that we were seeing before. Now, finance type is another interesting thing to look at. We do have cash purchases still in our market, about 22% as far as January and February of this year so far. And then if we look back to 2022, this is where we see a lot more cash purchases taking place, up to 30% back in May of 2022. We were seeing a lot as well in 2021 at 30%, much more than we had seen in the past. 2020 is really when started to see a pickup in that, kind of shifted, but 30% cash purchases at some points in time. And then you have your conventional loans, which make up a good number of purchases as well. So this hasn't shifted too much. It looks like a lot of people, tried to pay cash more so, obviously, for competition reasons back in 2022, but we still had a pretty healthy amount of conventional loans. Then we have FHA loans, which kind of went away to a much smaller number for a time when things were really competitive, because those loans, unfortunately, aren't quite as competitive for a seller to look at, typically a lower down payment, and then some other stipulations that the lenders require before closing. So FHA as well as VA, which you see at the bottom, were at a lower percentage during that time and have started to come back a little bit more. So at 12% now and 6.3% for VA. And then new loan, to be honest, I'm not sure what they're referring to in here, what new loan is as compared to just the Fannie Freddie loan. And then we've got our hard money, which is a small percentage, 1.5%, 1.6. Even when we look back to 2022, this was still a pretty small percentage of purchases with hard money. And that basically means it's still a loan, but it's a loan for the full cash amount, and there's very high interest rates associated with that. So that is percentage of homes for sale by finance type. Just realized I may not have been showing you this whole section over here, so hopefully you can see the difference now. And so that has shifted a little bit, largely because we've lost a lot of cash buyers and gotten down by about 8% from the peak of number of cash buyers that we were seeing. Interest rates, I just figured this would be interesting to look at, because as we're talking about loans and cash buyers and who is buying right now, let's see where interest rates are at. So recently we've seen a lot of change in interest rates because of the banking turmoil, and we're at about 6.65% according to the Cromford data. Of course, this depends on your qualifications, the loan type, and lots of different things, but generally about 6.65%. This is for 30-year fixed mortgage interest rates. And we have come up a little bit from the lows that we were seeing in February, which started a lot of buyer activity in February when we saw those interest rates go down. And we have come up, obviously, quite a bit from where we were at in early 2022 in those 3% ranges. But as you can see, historically, we've almost never really been as low as that, like 2.68. That was December of 2020. So if you bought with that interest rate, then congratulations. That was also before we saw a ton of price appreciation. So big congratulations to you on that, if that was your timing. And, through that time, rates were very low, and this goes back to 1973. So you can see how historically low rates had been over the last 2-3 years, and it's not likely we're going to get down to that number again. It looks like the lows, at like 4%, we've seen 3.5% in 2013, but, the 6.65% feels high, but in the long term, it's really more of a normal percentage. So that's where we stand today. Rates peaked, came down. They've gone back up, but we're not quite at the peak that we saw. I think this was October, November of 2022, where we were getting into the 7% range. So let's also look at sales, because the other thing that I hear quite a bit is that home sales are in the toilet. And while we do have lower number of sales transactions going on, they're not non-existent. So far, this is year-to-date home sales comparing year over year. For 2023, we're at about 5,300 home sales in January and about 6,800 home sales in February. This is compared to last year, 9,300 and 10,000. The year before, 9,400, 10,000. So, we knew there was a lot more activity in those years. 2020 also started off strong. But if you go back to 2015, 2016, 2017, those aren't too far off of where we're at this year. Although transaction volume is certainly lower than what you would normally see if we hadn't gone through the craziness that we've had and had such change in interest rates so quickly, there's still a lot of homes being sold. 5,300 in January and almost 7,000 in February. February was a busier month for sure, so it'll be interesting to see what March closings look like based on the activity that we had in February, but we won't get that data for probably another month or so. So this brings me to talk about home prices. So if you've been watching headlines, you have probably seen home prices drop for 7 straight months to start 2023. Home prices cool in January, even falling in some cities, S&P Case-Shiller says. So both of these articles came out. Let's see, this was March 28th. This one, I don't know if it's going to show me the date, March 28th. So both of these just came out. Why are they talking about January? Well, because the Case-Shiller Home Price Index just came out, and that information is always on a quarterly basis. So they're looking at the start of Q1. And at this point, that's 3 months old. So the sales that happened in January and those sales prices are also reflecting the activity that we had in November and December. But if we look at current information, and this is, I don't have median sales price by month yet, so this is the best I can do to show where prices are at right now as far as what the Cromford report has. But they have the monthly average sales price per square foot. And you can see where we stand today, just over, what is that, 278? And it's totally jumped up through March and has continued to grow since January. So you can see we really hit a low in January. And that's the information that's coming out with the Case-Shiller home prices. So keep that in mind, not that they're incorrect, but it's just dated information. And since January, we've seen quite a bit of change in terms of prices, especially looking at price per square foot. Also, it depends on how you measure it, whether it's price per square foot, whether it's median or average, whether it is just the median sales prices. So there's a number of ways to look at things. But generally, this is showing the trend of what happened. And like I said, February, we saw interest rates go down. We saw a lot more buyer activity. We saw a lot more homes go under contract. We started to see more competition, and all of those homes that went under contract in February are likely closing in March. And so that's why we're seeing this reflected in the March data now. So let's see, March, April, May, June. So the June data for Case-Shiller is probably going to show that home prices increased, stayed flat, whatever that looks like, because it's going to be reflecting this. But at that point, we'll be 3 months down the road, and this could look totally different. Could be down here, could be up there, who knows? So all of that to say, just if you are hearing that information and it's conflicting with what you're seeing in other places, that is why it is about 3 months dated. But that's who's buying homes in this market. Overall, we have shifted back to a little bit of a healthier mixture of home buyers. We've shifted to a little bit of a healthier number on the sales volume. Although it's low, it's not the frenzied volume that we had seen in the past. And our sales prices are starting to recover, or at least in the last 2 months they have. So we'll see if that trend continues. So hopefully this is helpful for you to get a pulse on what's going on in the market, who's currently buying homes, and don't be fooled by media, because there are still people buying and selling homes, plenty of people doing so, especially here in the Phoenix real estate market. So thanks for joining me. And if you have any questions, check the description below. We have a link to set up a time to chat. And we also have a few helpful links there to get your instant home value, as well as search the MLS for homes for sale if you are in a position to do that. So I will see you guys all next time. I'm Caitlin McCagg with the Desert Dreamers team.